got some fresh.
Hey, I'm Luis.
Doing some things.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
And we spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques on how to create some content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn how to turn that content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah. Why are you laughing, Fonzie, today?
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
Dude, I'm laughing because from this side, when we're separate, the audio, like the music, kind of like cuts out a little bit, so I cannot time the intro right. So I was like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? But I think it was awesome. I think we nailed it.
What are we talking about today, Fonz?
Yes, today we have an incredible guest, actually round 2 for this guest, and we're going to talk about unlocking your podcast potential for profit, reach, and impact.
Oh, baby.
I gotta say disclaimer, I did borrow the headline from his course, actually, because it was so good, so juicy. I had to.
Hashtag juicy. All right. Hey, we're not even going to talk about sponsorship today because today's episode is sponsored by our guest and he's going to tell us all about it today.
But yes.
We are going to ask you, go ahead and follow the podcast. We've heard, and maybe our guest can confirm this, we've heard that Apple is taking the subscribe button out because it was confusing people. They thought that they had to pay. And no, this amazing content is always for free. So go ahead and follow us on the podcast, Content is Profit, everywhere, and on social media at BIZBROS Co. Make sure you leave a awesome review in there as well. I don't know. Fonzie, I just took over today.
That is right, guys. And please, if you find this episode impactful, which I am sure you will because today's guest is amazing, if his message helps you to move one step closer to your goal, please don't forget to share this podcast. And like my brother said, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Round 2, let's go. Today we are having a guest for the second time on the show. The first time he was here, he brought the heat. And we're sure he'll do the exact same thing today.
I know. Today's guest, he's actually releasing a brand new course. So we had to bring him in here because what he talks about is so freaking valuable. Let me tell you, last time he came, we put a little note right next to his name that said Podcasting Masterclass. So when he came back and he said, Fonzie and LUISDA, you know what? I'm actually releasing a course about Podcast Marketing Academy. Ooh, and I want to share it with your crowd. I was like, yes, please do. We will be extremely excited to have you on our show once again. Please welcome founder of Counterweight Creative and the creator of the Podcast Marketing Academy, Jeremy Enns.
Hey, Louis, Fonzie, great to be back on the show.
Yes,
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, man. It's always exciting to chat with you. You're at the forefront of all this incredible modern media world, man. So I can't wait to dive deep into what you're bringing today.
Yeah, man, you guys bring the heat in the intros, like being backstage, and it's just like feel really good going into these interviews.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I actually
that
feel
a lot,
like,
especially today.
I feel like today's energy wasn't that high. I don't know. I feel like since I'm at my girlfriend's parents' house, they cannot be that loud, right? I need to be like somewhat respectful, so I cannot fully scream 100%. But I appreciate the commentary.
I disagree with that, Fonzie. You need to bring the energy no matter where you are, man. So you gotta go talk to your in-laws and be like, "Hey guys, I'm sorry. It's podcast time. It's showtime. You gotta do it.
It is showtime, baby. It is showtime. And with that, Jeremy, why don't you, for people that want to listen about your story and the whole, podcasting masterclass that we did last time, they can go to episode 131. But, let's just give them a quick little recap on who is Jeremy Enns, and then we'll move on to the Podcast Marketing Academy, which it is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so like you've already heard, my name is Jeremy Enns, and I run a podcast production, marketing, and strategy agency called Counterweight Creative. And so I've been doing that for the past 5 years or so, working on the insides of a number of different podcasts for our clients. We've helped our clients generate over 45 million downloads in that span and helped them generate millions of dollars through sponsorships and sales of their products and the funnels that they create through their podcasts. So have been definitely on the inside of a lot of podcasts, as well as a huge fan from the outside as a listener myself, going back years before that as well. So I live and breathe podcasting and just like can't talk about it enough. So I'm glad that you guys are giving me the opportunity to just like, spew out all this stuff. My girlfriend gets tired of it about his podcasting.
I know. I feel like your girlfriend will hang out with my wife because same thing. Like, yes, this is a funny story. Yesterday, I was going live on Facebook, right? We had this challenge going on, and surprise, she joined the live as an audience member. She's like, Caitlin popped up. I'm like, what? This is the first time that you're seeing my content in like how many years, right? And then she goes and puts a comment, I cannot get out of this. How do I get out of this? Like, she could not find the exit. And I was just cracking up. I thought it was hilarious. So I feel like, she's like, I don't want to listen to you, man. Like, I listen to you at the house all the time. So I feel like they'll be able to hang out.
Your wife is the ultimate troll. She just troll you right there.
Oh, absolutely. I thought I'm sure she did that on purpose. Like, anyways.
You know what, Jeremy, I'm glad we're here because we all love podcasting. We all want to talk about podcasting all day long, and this is the stage to do so. So why don't you tell us exactly why the Podcast Marketing Academy was born, right? Because like you said in your journey, and this is a very, very fast recap, right? But you used to have a job where you were listening to podcasts for like 8 hours a day, and you started transitioning into the industry. It's like, what if I can do this for other people, right? So what led you to create a course that now you can reach people at scale, right? I don't know if there's a factor in that motivates you.
Yeah, so going back before that, like you said, my job was not to listen to podcasts. I worked a job where I was able to listen to audio at work. There you go. I did listen to podcasts for like 8 hours a day, plus in the off time, and just an obscene amount of podcast listening the year that I spent doing that job. And that was working manual labor doing landscaping. Before that, though, I went to school to be an audio engineer, and so I was coming at it very much from the technical side of things. And I ended up working this landscaping job because the music industry does not offer that many great paying opportunities these days, which is what I originally wanted to get into. So I was just paying the bills while I was working, trying to get established in the online business world. And so I came into podcasting very, very much from like the technical audio perspective. And I think like a lot of people, when they're starting podcasts, that feels like the big unknown thing, the most challenging thing. If I can just figure out how to like record great sounding audio, like that's all I need and I'll be off and running. That's what most of our clients come to. Like their biggest frustrations and struggles and pain points are all around like, what mic do I get? How do I record it? How do I make sure the guest quality sounds good? It's all the technical stuff. And so being a technical expert, having worked in big studios and all that, like that was pretty easy to work with a lot of clients, especially like lower level clients who, I started out on Upwork editing podcasts for $30 an episode, super cheap. And now we work in monthly packages that are a lot more inclusive of a lot more services for much, much, much higher than that. And have built up a team around that. But there was kind of a gap there where I was looking at our clients and, we were having some churn. So we operate on a monthly recurring kind of package system. Yeah. And we were seeing that, we were keeping a lot of our clients for the long term, but all the ones that we were keeping on for long term, like they were having really great success with their shows and they were growing their shows. They were getting a lot of downloads. They were having people joining their lists, buying their products, filling their programs, all the things that you start your podcast to achieve in the first place. Yeah. I think probably anybody listening to this show is creating content for a business purpose. They're not just doing it because it's like art or fun or a hobby. And, there may be some of that mixed in with that. I create a lot of content that is very much like I do it because it makes me happy to do it as well. And other people resonate with that as well. So like, if you can do that, that's amazing. And that's really the dream. But the people who were like having success, sticking with us for the long term, they were having a lot of success. They were achieving all those goals with their shows that they set out to. The people who were churning, who were like dropping off, maybe they'd be with us for 6 months, maybe a year, then they might just quit their show entirely. Those were the people who were not seeing those results. And, if we're honest, that's most people who start podcasts do not see results very quickly. And part of that is just, any kind of content creation. I know you guys talk about this. I think we talked about this a bunch last time. Is that it takes time. Like you're not going to see results in 3 months after like publishing every day. You might start to see some results, but you're probably not going to like become a millionaire overnight by just like, okay, I put out 10 great blog posts and now like, where's all the clients? Why aren't they coming in? Yeah. So there definitely is that time factor that you need to be consistent over a year and a half, 2 years. And that's when it's going to really start to ramp up and kind of those results are going to compound. But of course, as the business owner, seeing people who were like churning and dropping off and not sticking with us, I was like, okay, like what are these people missing that our other clients are doing? Like, where's the disconnect here, and how can we kind of help them solve that problem, both so they get more success, and if they get more success, they're going to keep working with us, and everybody kind of wins here. And as well, like, a lot of them were putting out really great content, and I think that's the big frustration for so many content creators, is that your content is good. Like, people are enjoying it, they're taking something from it, and like, if I could just get this in front of more people, like, I know that this will work in the long run. But I've tried everything I can think of, and I don't know what else to do. Like, why isn't this spreading? Why aren't I getting more email subscribers, more podcast downloads, blog page views, whatever it is? And so I started getting really curious about, like, okay, like, what are these two different groups of people? There was like a very distinct, hard split here. And so I started doing interviews with all of our clients and all the people in, not all the people in a Facebook group I had, there was like 2,000 people in there. But a number of people.
I mean, like, you spend the last 5 years interviewing people. That's
every
really
day,
impressive,
like 8 calls a day.
Yeah, that's commitment.
So basically I just got curious and started like sending out surveys, doing one-on-one interviews with people, and just making lists and seeing like, okay, like, where are the overlaps here? What are people doing? What are the common things that people are doing that are causing them to stay stuck? And what are the common things that people are doing to help them see results? And so basically it was out of all this research that I started coming up with this list of like, okay, here are these things that everyone who does well has these things in place. And everybody who's not doing well, like, they might have 1 or 2 of these things in place, but they don't have all of them. And so basically it's boiled down to, in this course, there's 4 modules, and they address each of those kind of things that is really important, specifically for podcasting, in order to, get these things in place in order to grow your show consistently. And I think that the thing that I definitely want us with my approach is that it's not about like advertising and pure exposure. Like, 3 out of the 4 modules are really about building the foundation of your content and the strategy behind that. And once you have that, the final module is on getting more exposure, but exposure without any of that foundation is not going to do anything for you. And that's where most people skip to the, like, I just need to pay like for more ads, and I need to get my face out there more and do all this stuff, get everywhere on social media, and then I'll be successful. And that's just almost never the case.
Ooh.
Yes, I love that, Jeremy. That aligns so much with our message that we share all the time, right? We have this this framework that we call the publishing pyramid, right? And none of it works if you don't have your basis, your foundations, right? Which is part of your messaging, right? Knowing, understanding your market, understanding how you're expressing, your message to your market. So that is so important. And we're also, last week, we started talking a lot about conscious action, right? And there's the Bruce Lee quote, which is, I don't fear the man that practices 10,000 different kicks once, but I fear the man that practices one kick 10,000 times, right? And we go back to the quote because we said he misses something in there, which is, imagine if you practice that one kick 10,000 times wrong, right? Then you are just going to get it very wrong, and you're going to have that ingrained in your brain. And it's the same with podcasting and understanding the foundations and the basis on marketing, right? Honestly, on your messaging, on doing that market research, understanding who you're talking to. It is so important. So I love that the basis of your academy, right, is the fact that it's hey, we are going to go deep in principles and foundations, that we're going to understand what is actually going to make you successful in the long term. And then we're gonna work on these tactics and strategies that might help, that are gonna help you out gain more exposure. But if you gain exposure but your message is not there, you cannot serve people the right way, it's just gonna be a downward spiral, because then you're probably gonna start getting negative testimonials, right? Negative reviews on your podcast. It's not good, and then it's just gonna go down from there. So I love that focus that you have right now.
Yeah. And I think, like, the other thing, sorry, to just
no,
one thing
go
to
ahead,
go.
On
Onto what Fonzie was saying there, that came to mind is, like, basically, when I think about content and podcasts, if you, anybody who's listening to this, I would be curious for you to go through your list of shows that you listen to regularly and just think about, like, how did I come across this initially? And I've done this for myself, and, out of maybe 20 shows, there might be like 4 or 5 that I, did some kind of keyword search to look and learn something. I was, maybe I'm looking for content marketing or online marketing, or, start my podcast or whatever that is, and you come across a show that related to that. But the rest, almost all of the rest of those, like 15 out of 20, were all word of mouth. Like, somebody told me about them. And I think that this is the thing that it kind of feels as content creators, like we know that, if we create a good show, it should grow by word of mouth, but that feels like so far beyond our control. It's like, well, we can't control what people say about us. Like, how do we do that? We can ask our people to, I mean, they won't even like subscribe to the show or like rate and review. Like, are they actually going to tell somebody else about it? And I think the thing that we forget is that like we can control that if we create a show worth talking about in the first place. And so that's where that foundation is. Like, yes, you need to like get in front of those initial people, those initial like people who are going to become your diehard super fans. And, maybe that's getting in front of just 10 of those perfect people. And that's where some of that exposure comes in, and you can speed it up by getting more exposure. But at the end of the day, like, the way you grow a big show is by people talking about it, because 100 people talking about your show can spread it so much further than you can do alone.
Yeah. Oh man, this is so good. Like, and Jeremy, as you were talking, I'm reflecting on our journey, right? Like, and we're very proud of what we achieved. We're very proud of like the relationships that we were able to build. But I don't think, or I don't consider our show a big show, right? Like, maybe we're too hungry. I don't know. Who knows? But at the same time, with that said, though, we've been getting this incredible feedback from the people that have been tuning into the show in every channel, right? Because it's obviously it comes out as an audio. We have the behind the scenes that we're doing now. We have, the clean cuts. We have the golden boulders coming out every single day in social media. And because of that, right, after a few months of consistency, we were able to open a group with a challenge of a story that it was very close to, of the 45 Live story, right, on how we started publishing. And the challenge, we now have 100 people with us going through it together. And this was people that raised their hands like, guys, we want to join you. We want to do this with you guys, right? And as I look back, I'm like, wow, like what an impact, right? And it was through consistency, and I was going through, and you were mentioning long term, right? And I think like everything in life is long term, right? Like those quick fixes, those things, they don't work. They're garbage, right? Like, and going back, we were in that situation where like we needed a quick fix. We needed to find, we needed to buy all the bro marketer stuff that makes you rich in like 2 days, right? And it was like that initial greed that got us going, but it has evolved way past that. And I love the content creators. I love the people that commit to this, because that means that they're on a different phase in their life and they're ready to kind of take action and build on the foundations that you are bringing them with these amazing tools. So I love everything that you do. Like in my head, I'm like, man, I wish we had this like 9 months ago, right? To give us a little bit of direction, right? Like for us was like, let's go execute, and we'll bump here, poof, and then we'll get back, and then we'll bump there, and then we'll get back. And we're bruised. That's why I wear a hoodie, right? So you don't see my bruises of the journey. But with this, I think that would have been an amazing direction. So thank you for bringing this. I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people that might be starting, or even that already have a show but need to correct and fastest way to understand those foundations to continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, like the course is actually made for people who've been going at it for a while. Like most of our customers, like this is too overwhelming for if you're just starting out. And I think like a lot of the foundational stuff is important. I will at some point create a second course that's just the launching a course, or launching a new show. But this is for people who basically, I create it for my clients who were struggling, because that's like where it all came back to, is like, okay, we've got these clients, what can I make for them so that they actually start getting results, and they can be more like this other group of clients who's already achieving results. And
that's
so
awesome.
Basically
I love it.
The typical client has been producing or the typical customer of this academy, we've been through it kind of 2 beta versions so far, and this is the first more public launch of the program. That typically been podcasting for a year to 2 years. We've had some people who've been going 3 years already, and I mean, that's a long time to produce content. And I know a lot of people, like, they keep going because they love producing it, and they know there's something valuable there, and they get good feedback from people. There's just not enough people. And so that's who it's really designed for. It's like you've been going for a while and you're just frustrated, and you've like tried all the things, and you're like, well, what else is there to try? And so that's really who this is made for.
Okay.
And I wouldn't,
No, okay. So here, okay. Big analogy here. Let's see, Fonzie, I know that you have like this incredible question in your head. I can see it, your pimple is coming out, and you're like, let's do it. No, I'm kidding. But have you guys ever heard or seen the TrackMax? TrackMax tool is for off-road vehicles. right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I own a Jeep. I love it. Fonzie, no, he has a Kia, whatever. Sorry, Fonzie, we need to get you on the Jeep wagon. Anyways, so when you go to the beach, right, and then let's say you go on like soft sand or in snow, right, and then if you start rolling, right, that traction, you won't get so much traction, and then your car will dig into that sand, right? So I feel, because we've been there too, that sometimes that content creation is like we're rolling, we're trying to find that traction, and then maybe we move like a centimeter, a little bit ahead, or no, and then but we keep digging, right? And we don't know why. We don't know, is it first gear? Is it like what am I doing wrong? Do I need to put the 4x4, right? Obviously, for those listening that are experts of rotors, bear with me. Now, there's this tool that is called TraxMax, I believe. I saw the ad this morning. I might be butchering the whole name, but it's this plastic, like reinforced plastic thing that you put in front of the wheel, in front of the wheel, and then it gets you that traction. So your course is people that have been digging into the sand for so long, and they know because they love their vehicle, they love their Jeep, they love their podcast, right? And they're like, I don't want to get out of this. And then you come in and you put that TraxMax in there, and then it goes and you get out of the sand and you move forward. Okay. Fonzie, did I approved? Analogy approved? Oh man.
I like that analogy. That was pretty good.
That was so awesome. So yeah, I just want to share that. George Bryant, you should be proud of me. Anyways, but I think this is an incredible tool, and when you described it, it is like that, right? Because yes, getting started, it can be challenging, but it also can be very simple, as in let's take action, right? But at the same time, as you start seeing that, you might find yourself in a position where you're like, okay, what's next, right? And we've seen it in different ways, and our show pivoted from just us to interviews to then relationship building. It has been incredible, but it's been 150 episodes, right? And there's people in there with a year of publishing, 2 years, 3 years, that might need that direction. And then one of those models can be that spark, right? Be like, oh my God, that's the one I was missing. So yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the people who started 3 years ago, like, things have changed so much in the past few years when it comes to podcasting. There's just so much more competition. And I think like 3 years ago, there was already a lot of competition, but they were learning from people about starting podcasting who started 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, it was I don't want to say it was very easy, but I know a lot of people who had a much easier time starting shows like 5, 6, 7 years ago, where you could just create a show and you were going to build an audience. Like, as long as your audio quality was decent, the content was decent, like, you were just naturally going to build momentum. And so they kind of didn't have to think as hard about the strategic part of building the foundation out. And so when they started creating courses and stuff like that, they'd never had to deal with it. And so it was just like, well, this is what you do. This is how I was successful. This is how anybody will be successful podcasting. Yeah. And so now I think we need like a different approach to that, to be like, okay, if there are now 1 million shows versus back then where there might have been, 200,000 or 300,000, like, that you need to be able to stand out in a whole different way there when it comes to starting a show in 2021, or even if you've started a few years ago and you just never addressed those foundational elements of what's your major differentiator, like what's the narrow niche you're speaking to, and like what are the content topics that you are the best positioned person to speak to that's going to resonate with them, and all these other questions.
Absolutely. I think it definitely is important to, you're growing with the market, right? And a lot of people I don't know, the first thought that came to mind was education, right? Like university. That in a lot of cases, not always, right? But it is, you go to school and then you're like, man, like, I haven't used anything of what I learned inside of the school outside, right? I feel like a lot of the things that I learned were like pretty obsolete. And so I love the fact that you have been iterating as well, because you said this is like the third time that you do it, right? The third time that you're bringing this, and is like the more official one that you've done. And I'm curious, what have been some of the lessons that you've learned through those iterations, right? Because I'm sure from 1 to 2, like, there was this, maybe certain patterns that you saw, lessons that you learned that you're like, oh, this would be extremely valuable to add for this new one.
Jeremy, before you go there, like, I want to highlight something that might have gone undercover that you said earlier, and it goes along with Fonzie's question. But it's, you listen to your customers, right? And for those business owners that are out there listening, this is so important, right? Like, we were on a conversation with a company in Colombia a couple days ago, and they have this amazing vision of a women's center, right? and of different tools for women, because the story of the owner is very powerful. And she found in dancing like her way out of migrating to that country, finding her people, and then she started attracting that audience, right? And imagine that the dancing and that studio is her platform, like many of our shows are. And she started attracting that audience, right? And then immediately she started understanding the problems of these women that were coming to her, right? And now she had a list of like 30 things that she wanted to do in this women's center, right? And when we asked her, well, where are you at there, right? And she's like, well, we're in this little office space taking about 14 people dancing. And I'm like, okay, well, the vision is great right now. What's the plan was one by one. And it's incredible to me that sometimes we forget that our current customers are telling us where to go. So for her, her homework for the whole week was like, hey, go ask your people, like, what would be, like, rank the things that they need first. And then immediately you can test that out and see if it grabs traction, right? So for you, in your case, that's something really, really important that you did. You went like, you start spotting these problems, these questions, these concerns of your current clients, right? And you're like, how can I serve them at a higher level, right? And I think that's such an important lesson in any business, right? Go back to your customers. What are they struggling with? How can I help them? And then if they're having that issue, probably other people are having that issue as well. So we're like, okay, let me work on a solution for them. You say you had 2 versions, and then you're releasing this third one, right, to the general public. And I thought, like, you said it very quick, very casually, but it's such an important point, because sometimes we had this idea in our head of a product, of a service that might look incredible, might feel incredible, but then when we put it out to market, it flops, is because we haven't really addressed those pains in the right way. So I just wanted to highlight that before you go into Fonzi's answer on the rest of it, because it's so important for business owners to understand that concept and turn around and go back and be like, okay, let me ask my current customer, what are the issues? What are the follow-up problems that they're having? Let me help them. Let me serve them a little bit higher. So I just want to say thank you and highlight that before you now do your incredible answer for Fonzi's question. If we remember which one is it.
Yeah. Regarding the iterations between the 3 different, the third program. Yeah, so it's interesting to me, I think, because I've been wanting to, for the past 5 or 6 years, as long as I've been in online business, like wanting to, create a course of some kind. And so this was the first like real big course. I'd done some workshops, some mini things like that in the past, but this was the first big full course that I've done. And it's like, it's a beast. There's over 20 hours of content in it. Wow. There's like a lot of stuff. And so that was actually going into the first time. I did it as a beta. I pre-sold it. I didn't have anything recorded or created. I had the lesson plan outline ready to go. And so I like knew what was going to be in it, but I didn't know like, okay, I have this many lessons. How long is each lesson going to be? Is it going to be 10 minutes or is it going to be 30 minutes? And really they ended up being on the longer side of things. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is a huge course. And the way I had structured that first one was that it was a 16-week cohort. So a certain number of lessons were released every week for the 16 weeks of the program. And the big feedback there was that people were falling behind, that it was just like too much content to be able to like keep up and implement every week. And so now I had all this, it was all pre-recorded videos that I had done there. But for the second cohort, I was like, okay, I want to make this more focused and bring more kind of like accountability and kind of an action orientation to it. And so all the pre-recorded videos were still there, but then we did still 16 weeks a cohort, and I taught the highlights of those all those lessons live every week over the 16 weeks. And so that one did well, but also not everyone was. There have been some like other issues with that one that have been presented, and so this one's going to be a much more go at your own pace style course this time with regular Q&As, because we were still getting where over 16 weeks is such a long time to be able, like 4 months to be able to commit to showing up every week, that of course like life happens, and so people like couldn't make it one week, and then like they kind of missed out on that kind of Q&A and discussion around it. And so this one, it's going to be more go at your own pace. It's going to be all the videos, but there's going to be weekly Q&A support calls where, whatever stage anyone's at in any part of the process, they can just show up and ask their questions and get them answered and have a discussion with the rest of the group. So it's still going to be kind of like a cohort who's like, this only opens up twice a year. And so it's going to be a fairly like limited number of people in this one going through. I kind of like keeping them a bit smaller rather than having like hundreds of people in at a time. So the first one was 20, the past one was 15. This one will be a little bit bigger because it's a little bit different format. Yeah. But so it's going to be, still an intimate kind of group of people, and there's going to be that space for Q&A and getting questions answered and conversation and seeing what other people are doing. But I think part of what I've learned is that there's so much content here that I don't want to rush people through it. Yeah. And so that's part of the reason of moving to this other kind of method where basically you'll get lifelong access to this support community. And so you'll have Q&A access forever rather than just the 16 weeks. And so you're not like pressured to like, well, I need to figure out this week so I can move on to this next week. Yeah. And so then you don't really do the homework and work on each of those kind of really fundamental elements that are presented in the lessons. And so I think that that's a huge thing where I've been like kind of in the first two, I was like, I might be doing people a bit of a disservice here by like the pace is so fast that I don't think they're fully having time to implement like, and they can go do that anytime after the fact, but there's a kind of pressure imposed by the timeline in order to like keep up and move on to the next thing before finishing the previous one. So I would say that that's one of the big changes. And then the second thing that I'm just really, really excited about, I know we've talked about this before since in the last episode, I'm super into Notion right now.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. We should have a whole, dude, the last like 3 days it's been Notion, no time. This is why this is here today is because I haven't slept.
Yeah. So I basically the first version of this course I launched about a year from right now. I think it was March, April, May, sometime 2020. And then the second cohort was in, I want to say October, November 2020. And I discovered Notion in the end of December 2020. So it's only been the last few months. And since getting into it, almost as soon as I got familiar with the program, I was like, oh man, I can create just some like badass homework templates in here. This is going to be so amazing. Yeah. And so now I've got this whole like homework template system that there's going to be like the worksheets. I'm like so excited about them to just like go through them myself, even though I've done all this stuff and I've like created templates for everything. And so I'm really excited about that for the ability to kind of like have one of the things that I found actually through Notion, this is so interesting, is when you have a place to put something, you do it. And so like when you, like one of the things that I always really admire people who have like all these quotes for every occasion, and they're like in a blog post, they'll like throw in this quote here, or like in any book, like I would love to write books one day, and they have these perfect quotes for every situation. And I'm like, how do they keep track of these and remember these? Are they in notebooks? Right. And so like in Notion, now I just have like one place is like anytime I find a quote, it just goes here. And then like with ideas, I feel like that is true for myself. Anytime I have an idea, I just put it there and then I review it at the end of the week and I can like remember them and be like, oh, this is good, this is bad, that can be forgotten about, this one I'm going to prioritize, move it into this project. And so I feel like that's one of the things where I've really discovered that by building out templates and kind of frameworks for things, it's way easier to do the thing. It stops becoming this abstract idea and it becomes, oh, all I need to do is fill in the blanks and I'll have done it. It's not like this kind of amorphous cloud that you're like, you don't quite know how to grab it or approach it. You have like, okay, A, B, C. Okay, I filled those out. I was given the prompt, a question to answer, and I answered it. I thought about it for like 2 minutes and it's done. And then you like have this breakthrough because you just like all it really took was like 3 minutes of writing stuff down, kind of journaling on it. And all of a sudden, like you realize, oh, that wasn't such a big thing as I thought. And now I have way more clarity on this. And so basically that's how the homework templates are designed. There are a lot of prompts and questions to think about, things to answer. And I mean, in the over the total of the course, it's a lot of things, but each lesson is actually pretty small and bite-sized information to be able to work through and make a lot of progress.
Yeah, Jeremy,
that's awesome. I love it.
I just want to highlight your passion, man. Like the fact, like as soon as you started this episode, the energy and the passion level has just increased. So I want to encourage everybody listening, right? Like if you want to be part of that limited amount of people, go to the link that's right in the description and sign up because it's the third time that, they're getting amazing results. It's incredible. I think it's going to, be that tool that continue to grasp momentum. And if you have Jeremy behind the wheel with this passion, I mean, I can only imagine what the final result is, which is so incredible, right? Like, we personally sync with that, right? Like with people that are really passionate about their stuff. And we are passionate about content and teams and the modern media stuff. And every time people talk to us, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm also excited, but I don't know. I don't really know why. I'm like, I know why, because, you know, you're also like us. And I feel like we have that energy as well. And I'm feeling it. And I love it, man. And when you put that amount of love in your craft, in that amount of love in the servitude to your audience, to your current clients even, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, I make this sale and then that's it, I won. I'm like, no, that's really when it starts, man. Like, that's really when you have to start taking care of that relationship with everything in your power to make sure that, you know, you can serve them to the highest of their ability, and then they can go and run and have an amazing success. So, and this is what I see with you, man, in this second interview. It's been so fun from that first time to now this, and we're like, oh, this is so good, the behind the scenes. And thank you for walking us through your process. Because a lot of people are like, man, especially business owners, they might be thinking about launching their own thing, right? They might be thinking about doing their own stuff. And this will bring a lot of clarity to that on like, oh, sweet. Like the fact that you said, whenever we have a place to put stuff, it gets done. I'm like, sweet, find your place to put stuff, right? For us, lately, it has been Notion, right? Like, you know, I had Evernote, Workflowy. I'm moving everything to Notion, by the way. So I don't know. This is not promoted by Notion, by the way. This is not sponsored by them.
So this, Kate, this is exactly the thing that I want to mention, because I found myself, I'm not, Notion does not have an affiliate program, I don't believe. I tell everybody about it, and I'm like so excited that I have like now 5 friends who, and you guys, I don't know if you heard about it through me or what, but like there's a bunch of people who like, I know like they started using Notion because I told them about it. And I think the thing here is like, this is the same thing we want for our content, is people who have nothing, they don't get anything out of it. They just get so much value out of that content. Like it is that they like will tell everybody. And it's funny, like I've been on a few calls with people, with my mastermind, with my team. Anytime I start talking about Notion, there's this like smile that creeps across my face and I can't keep it off. And I'm just like, oh man, I just want to go like play in it and build stuff in it. And I think that that's the same thing for all of like our favorite shows, for our favorite blogs, newsletters, like we can't shut up about it. And so that's what this academy is really about. Is like, how do we create that type of show that people like can't stop grinning about when they start talking about, and like all their friends are annoyed with them because they like have told them about it a dozen times. And like that's the kind of content that grows in the end.
Oh, yeah, so no, absolutely. It's so important. And like my brother said, you can tell the level of that you and intention that you put in all this. And I think that's what separates as well free products from paid products, right? Because yes, we might be able to learn anything out there in YouTube University, right? But the main difference is the level of support and accountability that you are going to get when you get into these programs, right? Into this cohort. Yeah. And right, like what I'm surprised about is the fact that you have go back into round 1 and 2 and reflected on how can I support these people better, right? How can I get them a step closer to what the goal of this cohort is, which is impressive, right? Because a lot of people, they launch at one time and then they see, you know, certain percentage of success within the people that took it, and they're like, oh, it's a good course, I'm just gonna relaunch it again and relaunch it again. But what I love about you, man, is that you actually care, and you're actually going back, reflecting and saying, I can actually, you know, instead of making it an intensive 60-week, I'm just going to let them self-pace themselves and put these activities in here, and you're doing that work yourself, which is absolutely amazing, man. So thank you for that. Like, just because of that, I do want, like, of course, I want to encourage people to sign up either way, but I think that right there is a difference, right? Because you know you have someone in your corner that is going to push you to actually, you know, achieve that goal that you're looking to achieve.
Jeremy, as we wrap up, I mean, we could talk to you about this all day, just so you know. But where can people go? Like where like after all this whole passion truck came in, and you know the Max Tracks helping them on being Unstuck from their shows. Where are we going?
Yeah, so you can go check out the course. The sales page isn't updated live yet right now, but you can go to counterweightcreative.co/marketing and sign up for the wait list, and you'll basically get a 7-day email sequence just walking you through. If this hasn't been enough for you of the overview of the course, that 7-day email sequence will just tell you a bit about like who it's for, what it's for, some of the outcomes, kind of answer any questions you might have about it, and you'll be the first to know then when that goes live, coming up in a few weeks at the start of April. The other thing that I'm also doing leading up to this launch, because I know a lot of people, one of the reasons that they do want to grow their audiences is to monetize in many ways, but sponsorships are one of those. And I have not seen a lot of great information out there on podcast sponsorships. And so I'm doing a free 5-day workshop, which kicks off on Monday, March 29th. And so that's going to be, there's going to be more Notion templates. You can guarantee that. And there's going to be, it's going to be half hour every morning of lessons and then half hour of Q&A for 5 days that week. And so that is going to be, I'm going to be teaching everything that I know about earning high ticket sponsorships. We've had some clients who have, 1,000 downloads per episode on their podcast and have multiple. We have one client who he has 2 sponsors, each paying $3,000 a month with about 1,000 downloads an episode, which I think most people look at that and are like, that's impossible. Like, why would it, how do you get those? And I've seen that with multiple clients. And I think it's really about aiming niche and thinking about it from a completely different perspective than the typical sponsorship approach.
So Jeremy, I actually wanted to talk about this like since the beginning, because I remember you sharing this story with me. So I just want to put this, I want to frame what you just said for people that are listening, right? We were talking about some of the stats that we listen and read all over the place, right? And actually John Lee Dumas, right, Entrepreneur on Fire, he said, I think that you can charge, it's like $18 or $45 per 1,000 views for sponsors, right? Which, I mean, now compare that to what you are talking about, the 3,000, right? For 1,000 downloads. And not only that, it's if you are to be in the 1% of podcasters, you need to have like over 3,000 downloads in the first 7 days. And usually the ones that are in the 1% are the ones that get like ad money and they get sponsorships and all that stuff, right? So when you told me the story about that person that has like 1,000 downloads per episode, and he's getting 2 separate sponsorships of $3,000, right, per month. I'm like, oh, that is amazing. Like, that is something people need to understand, right? The principles and foundations behind that, so they can apply it. So I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up because, and the reason I just shared these little stats is so people understand the magnitude and the importance of what you just said, right? That is, it's not just you need to be a 1%er. Like, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah. And basically when I've done the math, and you can kind of take this with a grain of salt, because it's not always, this is one of the things that we're going to talk about in this workshop, is that it's not always about just pricing that ad slot. It's about adding in other ways that you can offer value to the sponsors as well. And a lot of people ignore all that stuff, and they're leaving a ton of money on the table when they do that. But basically, if you were to compare that to that industry average, like $18 to $25 per 1,000 downloads, this would be somewhere between, we've had clients between like 20 to 50 times that amount. So that's like a huge increase over that. And I think that's the other thing, is that it's not, there's so much misinformation. You hear people like asking questions like, how many downloads do I need per episode in order to start getting sponsors? And a lot of people will say like, oh, 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000. But we've had people launch brand new shows and line up like $800 per episode sponsorships for a number of episodes before they've had a single download yet. And so I think like if you know how to approach it, and if you know how to sell it, and if you know how to like pitch what your platform is going to be and who that audience is, like you can do really well with sponsorships. And the other thing, like I'll say on this, I used to be a huge skeptic of sponsorships, like up until a couple of years ago, before I'd seen some of this stuff from some of the people we worked with. I was like, no, sponsorships are a waste of time. And like, you're much better like selling your own products and services. And now I've seen a lot of people like this client who has those 2 sponsors, like he also sells his products and services. And so he just gets an extra $6,000 a month for a little bit of extra work. And I think both of these sponsors have signed on for a full year. Like that's a huge commitment, and they've re-signed after like doing a previous 6-month period with him. So clearly they're getting great results. He's getting great results. And one of the secrets here is that to getting these types of sponsorships is like almost every single member of his audience needs those 2 sponsors or a company like them. And so everybody's getting like positive exposure. It's really a win-win-win scenario here.
Absolutely. It's that concept that we talked about, that perfect concept, perfect content, right? Like that we described with Pablo in the back. Dude, Jeremy, thank you, man. This has been incredible. Again, where are people going? Did I get it right? Is it countercreative.co/marketing?
No.
Yep. So that's where they can go to sign up for the waitlist
For the waiting
the
list.
course.
Perfect.
And if you want to find out everything else about me, you can go to counterweightcreative.co/content-is-profit, all one word, and you'll have all my social links and everything will be there. And I know you guys will have stuff in the show notes as well.
Yeah, we'll put all those links right there, man. Thank you so much. Any last thoughts that we might have missed? This was so awesome and incredible.
The last thing that came up that I think is worth mentioning here, we talked a little bit about enthusiasm here, and I think like everybody's pitched stuff before that hasn't done well. Like that's just like nobody has anything successful that hasn't done things that have like flopped first.
Yeah.
And the thing that I noticed when I first sold this beta last year was like my own level of enthusiasm and excitement. And I talked about this with somebody who I interviewed for my show a while back, where when you find that product for yourself, it's almost like when you actually like fall in love for the first time and you like thought you had experienced that before with someone else. And it's not like till you actually land on it, you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like and like when you're excited about the thing you're offering, it's so much easier to get other people excited about it as well. And so I think that's just worth mentioning. Like I've tried to sell many things. Like I think that's just the natural like progression of building a business is you like start with things that you think are pretty good ideas, but you're not quite sold on them. Yeah. And like eventually they get better and better. And then you like land on something that you're like, whoa, this is like the thing. And people are getting a ton of value about this. I know how great it is personally that I can like sell. Like I just, it like pains me to think that somebody doesn't know that this is an option that might help them versus sometimes you're like, I feel like, you know, maybe are people going to regret buying this or something like that. And when you like really believe in the product, I think that like, it's just different for everybody involved. And so I think like for anybody listening, like with your own products and services and anything like that, like keep experimenting and working with stuff until you find that thing that you're like, anybody like who doesn't see the value in this, like they are missing something, or and maybe then on you too of not communicating it effectively, but like finding that thing that you were like so passionate to share, like we talked about with podcasts, like me with Notion, like whatever it is, like get something that you can't stop talking about and then tell people about it.
This is so good, dude. Jeremy, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Fonzie, any last thoughts? We got like a minute left. You good?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. And I can't wait to see the results of the people that what they're going to get when they join the Podcast Marketing Academy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me on again.
Absolutely, man. You're always welcome. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash that follow button. And also follow us on social media at BIZBROS everywhere.
That is right. And if you found this episode impactful and you want to sign up into the Podcast Marketing Academy, please, you know where to go. Link in the description. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.